what's up? It's me, Karen, your favorite booktuber, and today is November 2nd. I'm here to talk about what I watched in October, how many films. You know me, I'm a film buff. I watched 2 movies. I know, big accomplishment. I watched one season of one television show, half of a season of a television show, and a few episodes of the newest season of Roni. Let's get into it. Let's talk about them. The first film that I watched was The Banshees of Inisherin. This was an amazing movie. I loved it. I watched it on the plane, and I would have to say, so great. This tells a story of 2 friends who are living in an island off of the mainland of Ireland, and they're middle-aged, and one day, one of the friends decides that he's done with a friendship. He wants nothing to do with the other guy. Now, this sets the other guy off on just like despair. He's contemplating everything he's ever done in life. He's so confused. He doesn't know what's up. And kind of the whole community is like watching this happen. And I think it's really so funny. And it also has this like dark undercurrent, and it's contemplating life. It's so good. But basically, it's the one guy, naive, sweet guy, and then the other guy who's decides the friendship is over. He's like, I'm sick and tired of you. You're always just talking away. You never say anything of substance. You never say anything interesting. And this guy's like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with making small talk? What's wrong with just shooting the shit? Like, what's your problem? And he's just like, well, I need to create greatness, and I can't create greatness with your voice going off in my ear 24/7. So this starts off a feud between both of them. Body parts are cut off. Houses are burnt, things are happening, murder, death by the end of it. So good. But I think like what's so great about this is that you are looking at this friendship. You can say this is a story of friendship. Yes, very much so. But it's also a story of how does one live, because you have 2 different points of view. You have this guy who's just like happy-go-lucky, kind of dull, yes, but genuinely just a nice person. And then you have this guy who's not a nice person, who's questing for something, who wants to have accomplished something greater than that, who believes that, you know, it isn't enough to just be nice. And you're having like these 2 things like oppose each other. And it's the kind of thing that like makes you wonder, like, what would you do in that situation? Who do you believe is right? Are they both right? I thought it was really great. Would recommend it. You should definitely watch it. The next one that I watched was Millenium Mambo, which unfortunately there have been a few times where I've been calling it Millennial Mambo. But this is an interesting film. It's very like moody and atmospheric. It tells a story of Vicky, and it's visually we're seeing Vicky's life in 2001, where she is 20 years old and she's in an abusive relationship with this loser DJ guy, but also has a thing going on with this gangster and just trying to like figure out her life. But there's a narrator, which is Vicky herself, coming on, who will tell us what's happening and do like is like, oh, you know, 10 years have passed since then. Sorry, that was the kettle, not my fire alarm. Okay, don't get it twisted. And it's interesting. It's like beautifully shot. There's a really great theme song throughout the film that's like, in the beginning I was kind of like, this is coming on a little too much, but then I was like, no, this is the vibe. This is perfect. I started listening to it after I watched the film. I saved it on SoundCloud. What else was I gonna say? But this film, I started it. I was watching in the increments as I do, and then one night I could not sleep. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I just put it on, and I was like focused for an hour onto the film, just like in the vibe of like Taiwan, club kids, smoke. They smoke so much in this film, and just it's like very. There's these disparate scenes that are coming together. It is not logical. This does not make any sense, but it's like short stories is what this film is. It's just a short story. The narrator will come on and be like, Vicky said that she was gonna be with this guy, her abusive boyfriend, because she has 15,000, whatever the currency is, in her account. And once that balance hits 0, that's when she'll actually leave him. And I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. You have the money. dip now. Like, what are you doing? But anyway, so that gets repeated a few times. And then there'll also be moments where it's like the narrator's voice will be like, Vicky's boyfriend absconded from the draft because he didn't want to do it. I understand that. And the way he absconded was by making sure that he was underweight so he would smoke crack. And you hear that and you're like, okay, got it, noted, understood. And then we see the scenes and it's like, why did we need it? So those moments did not make any sense to me. It is hard to like critique this film because it's such a vibe. Like, it really is a great vibe, and it's very like telling of a time and place in someone's life where they're stuck, they're struggling, they're just floating, they don't really know what they want, but they're still so young that they can float, but they've got to make some decisions. And for some reason this girl is like in Japan all the time almost, and I'm like, what's going on? I wanted more details about the gangster guy. I thought we were going to get more scenes with him, but we really don't. But apparently I guess he has a wife who's an alcoholic, but she's going through rehab, I think, and he's chanting this Buddhist chant to help her in her recovery. And there's a film festival in north of Japan. I don't know. I thought this was really vibey, but there are times where it's just a vibe. I think that's really all I can say about it. I was reading reviews which were talking about how this film, I don't know, apparently is reconciling Taiwan's history. But if that was happening, it was done with such a light touch, it all went over my head. Final thing was that I wanted to say about this was, and then another review said something about how it was showing the realities of like an everyday person in Taiwan. And I was like, I don't think that's true, because literally all we see is Vicky and her young friends, and all they're doing is like going to the club, smoking, doing drugs, drinking. That's it. Like, those are just the activities of youth. I don't think it's the everyday person. So those are the two films that I watched. Let me talk about the television shows that I watched, because I think, I gotta make this video a tiny bit longer. I started two things, okay? We won't really talk about Roni. I do think there's a lot to be said about Real Housewives, that franchise and everything. The only Real Housewives franchise that I'm really invested in, or have been for a long time, is New York. And that's because I think, as my sister and I were chatting yesterday or the day before, is that because of our proximity to New York, we like know the landscape. We know those spots that they're going to, like we understand it. But the thing is, Roni, if you don't know, Real Housewives of New York got a reboot, as in they cut the whole entire cast from beforehand. That's like more than 9 years, right? And they brought on this new cast, Jenna Leon's, Sai, who's an influencer. This new season 2 has Rebecca Minkoff, like whatever, all these people. But there's no chemistry, and it's kind of boring. But there are things that are happening. There's analysis that can be done about, storyline and character arcs, but maybe not in this video. Okay. So earlier in the month, I started Nobody Wants This on Netflix, and I only watched half of this. I watched about 4 episodes, 4.5, and it is quite cringe. It's the love story between two people, this guy who's a rabbi and this woman who has a podcast about like sex and love. And you're seeing like how they're at odds with each other, like culturally, but they're really vibing. And it does heavily rely on the charisma between the two actors, who are quite famous and whatever. And like they are quite charismatic, but it's also like heavy on the cringe. And I suffer quite badly from secondhand embarrassment, and it was too much for me. I had to turn it off. I couldn't do that to myself. But then towards the end of the month, I started The Book Group, which is an old, I had to double check that out. I was about to say it was an old show, and then it looked as if it came out 2020, but that's not true. It came out in 2002. It's a sitcom from the UK. I watched season 1. It's only 6 episodes. They're all 30 minutes long, so that's like 3 hours. So that's basically as if I watched 2 films. And this is a story of a book group. I wish they had called it The Book Club. The Book Group sounds so awkward, but it's about an American girl comes through to Glasgow, and she starts this book group, and there's about 4 or 5 other people in it, and they're all just like misfits, And it's like, why are you guys hanging out? And they're all hanging out because they all read, but you have like the American, you have this guy Barney who's getting his master's or PhD, but also a drug addict. You have Rab, who like dresses up in Adidas and is like just does not seem like a reader and is obsessed with football. And then you have these three women who are wags, except one of them is actually not married and one of them's Finnish. One I think is from Denmark and the other's like from Glasgow. And then you have this other guy who's disabled, and you're just like seeing their energies, and you're seeing this tension between like American, English, Scottish, and it's interesting. I would say that there are times where it's like a little like I almost didn't continue with the series because the way that the pilot ends is so just like over the top and so ridiculous that I was like, I don't know, this is too much. I don't know if I can do it. But somehow I'm vibing with it. It's interesting. There is like not an overacting per se, but they're really like exaggerated certain elements. But it's like cool to see them like moving and grooving, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen in season 2. Okay, that's all the media I watched. I would love to know if you watched a film or a television show or whatever and what the vibes are, and see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.